All right, let's get started. I think, maybe not. There we go. Wow, everyone's coming in late. Coming in hot. All right, so I'm James Orr. I'll let people get final checked in. We'll just go over some upcoming class stuff. This is house hacking versus Nomad. Hello, everybody. I'm James Orr. So upcoming classes. Next week is a class I'm teaching. It will be on July 3rd. Do not show up, but it counts as me teaching that class for the stats for the end of the year. It is Financial Independence Day. So we will celebrate that together. You can go watch any of the videos we have up. That will count as me teaching. Just make sure you watch one that I taught. We'll do that one. So no class next week. Please do not come. You will be the only one here. The door will be locked. You will be outside. Interview a successful real estate investor. Brian, I think it's going to be me, but I have Brian listed up here as doing it. So how many people came to any of the other interviews? Who has not seen an interview yet? Okay, so I would recommend you watch Mary's interview first. Mary's interview is like, anyone know the title of Mary's interview? Like how to make $1 gazillion in real estate investing?
It's like something like $3,000 a month.
Is it the $3,000 a month class? Okay, so Mary's interview is amazing. It's like how to do something with 36,000. I would recommend you listen to that one. It is one of the few that's still available on the podcast because they rotate through, but that one will be permanently available as of right now. So we have another successful local real estate investor that is going to be coming in and doing an interview. That will not be recorded. It will be amazing, but there will not be recording even attempted. So it's not that it won't be published. It's like not even going to be live mic. So please come to that one. You're really going to like it. A successful real estate investor. You've probably seen them in class from time to time, although they're not here tonight. At least I don't think they're here tonight. But it's going to be really good. I'm meeting with them on Monday to go over some stuff about it. Then Real Estate Investing Financing 101. How many people want to learn about financing for buying investment properties or Nomad or house hacking or anything like that? Want to raise your hands? Okay, there's enough people that want it. I will continue to teach that. So that is going to be on July 17th. And then, this always surprises me. How many people have an interest in bookkeeping and accounting for real estate investing? Yeah, that's crazy. I always think that, like, I can't imagine why people are interested in that. So anyway, Brian will be teaching that class on July 24th. It's a surprisingly popular topic. I have no idea why. But he will give you a spreadsheet. He will give you tools. He'll show you how to set up all your files. He'll show you how to keep track of all your documents for managing your properties. So it's not just the bookkeeping accounting, but it's like getting organized with all your paperwork and your files and everything else. Has anyone seen Brian's version of that class before? Who's here? Was it worth coming to? Are you guys going to come again? Yep. So it's good enough. Yeah, see? There you go. One person is not coming again. See? Brian's going to go listen to this recording. He's going to hear it. I'm not going to say anyone's name. Okay, but there it is. So bookkeeping and accounting, it's really good class, despite me wondering why people like coming to it. But he goes over a bunch of good stuff. And then Brian Hot Pants Williams is going to be hosting Real Estate Investor Hot Seats. You're the only one here who was part of the Hot Seats previously, right? So was that worth doing?
Absolutely, yeah.
Did it have an impact?
Totally.
Did anyone else see Joe be in the hot seat? Yeah. Was that good? Was that helpful to kind of see other people do hot seat stuff? So basically, Brian will have you come up here, and he's ruthless, relentless. He'll really dig in, and you'll feel violated, but he will really help you. So it's at the end of the night, you'll be like, wow, I can't believe I feel this exposed and vulnerable, but you'll walk away with some really good information, some really good resources.
It still does.
Yeah, see? It still does feel that bad. The truth comes out. Now he's got to get volunteers. Good luck with that, Brian. Good luck with that. That's going to be awesome. So, yeah, that's coming up on July 31st.
Is it voluntary to be up there?
Yes, you have to volunteer to be up there.
It's not if you show up that night. It's free.
No. You'll know if you're there. So he will not pull people from the audience. So it's really good, but he'll basically have you volunteer ahead of time, and then he'll ask you some questions and help you decide which is the best way to kind of move forward. So definitely come. You'll know if you're going to be up here and picked out. What was I going to say something about, though? I think last time we had like 3 or 4, right? Didn't we do like 3 or 4? It was that time? Yeah, it was at least 3. Oh, I know what I was going to say. That is not recorded either, because we don't want you to be sensitive about releasing your personal private information beyond a small group. So that one will also not be recorded, which is why Joe doesn't have his recorded. But come and take notes. You know, we probably should let you record your own. That way you could kind of hear the feedback if we do it again.
Somebody could take notes for you.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's different, because hearing how Brian says it to you sometimes isn't captured in the note. Like, yeah, I don't know, just something to think about. Any questions on upcoming classes? Okay. And while everyone's looking at me, I feel really self-conscious about this. So I am a sloppy eater. I had spaghetti for dinner. There was spaghetti sauce on my t-shirt. And so we tried to get the spaghetti sauce out. So that is why I have a wet t-shirt, and that is why people are not getting hugs to start class. You can get a hug on the way out if it's dry. Oh, did I just throw myself under the bus? All right, well. In case you're wondering what's going on, like with this thing. This red spot does? Okay, that's good to know. All right, so now that I've embarrassed myself on mic for everyone to know. So introductions, where's the microphone guy? You got to earn that red badge.
Tammy hasn't been here in forever, so it's...
Oh, you thought she was doing it? Okay.
I actually don't know where it's at. Where's it?
It's right here.
Oh, well, you can start right there.
Oh, there you go.
Would you like to go first?
So we're going to do introductions. Who are you? And then do you prefer house hacking or Nomad? Oh, before we get started, let me borrow your sheet here for a second. Jeff, yeah. So anyone who is new, who has not filled out the sheet, we are running low on books. So I would not wait till the end of class. Please fill this out front and back, and then give it to Allison. Allison will give you one of the final books that we have, and then you will have the book. So please do that. Those people that are brand new, it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 years, something like that. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, microphone. Oh, yeah. The red light?
Yeah. It
Oh.
looks off, so I just want to make sure. Otherwise, that would suck for the rest of the class.
He is so not even engaged. He doesn't even know he's being thrown under the bus right now. Well, tell Brian it's NCRAG time. He knows that you're not on your phone. So, okay. So who are you? And then do you prefer house hacking or Nomad? And then please do not take photos of slides or record audio, video. We do record them. Recordings are available on James Orr and the podcast. And the microphone will not amplify your voice. But if you don't speak into it, I will get complaints. And I will then complain to you, because people complain they cannot hear you on the podcast, and they do want to be able to hear you. So please speak into the mic when you do it. Marcus, you want to go first? Who are you, and do you prefer house hacking or Nomad?
My name's Marcus, and I actually don't know which one I prefer yet.
Nice.
My name's Alex, and I'm going to say a combination of both.
Okay, that definitely works.
My name is Jeff, and I'm actually not familiar with either of those terms, so
Perfect.
just being real.
This is the night.
My name is Jennifer, and I think it's going to be house hacking, but I don't know yet.
Okay, awesome. That's actually a really surprising answer for me, by the way, considering how much Nomad we do here. This is your first night? Oh, this explains it. So you'll find out what Nomad is. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, Nomad's better. So tell me by the end of class if you prefer Nomad. Is anyone surprised? I mean, come on. What was last week's class call, guys? The best investing strategy of ever. And what was that about? Was it about house hacking? What's that? Yeah, the combo is better. Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, who invented the Nomad thing? Yeah, fair enough. Go ahead, Wade.
Hi, my name's Wade. And I was leaning towards house hacking, but apparently that's the wrong answer.
I guess I just spoiled the whole thing.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe a combination.
We're going to see how people have strong dispositions where they can. They were going to go against the tide of James just telling you that house hacking is not better than Nomad. But that's good though. Awesome. Thank you for coming.
My name's Nolan. I probably do a bit of a combination, but I'd say Nomad is the preferential option.
There you go. Correct answer when told.
Tammy and Nomad.
Matt and Nomad as well.
Whoa! You like snuck in on me. I didn't even see you there.
Just hide in the back.
Yeah, you're like incognito.
John, Nomad, but I want to learn a little bit more about the house hacking.
Okay, awesome.
I'm Dion, and I loved Nomad, so I'm curious about house hacking.
Yeah. That was your first week last week, right? Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm Lynn, and I need to learn a little more about house hacking.
Okay, very cool.
Hey everybody, my name is Russell. Longtime lurker, first time attendee, so pretty excited.
What does that mean? You're
Like on the website, watching the
you've been listening to the podcast and stuff like that? Oh, very nice.
So I've been listening to the other end of the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've house hacked one time, I think.
Nice.
So I'm gonna go with that for now, but I'm excited to know the difference.
But you've listened to the Nomad stuff and you still want house hacking? Wow. Okay, fair enough. That's true.
My name's Dustin. Probably hacking. I think I've done a lot of Nomad before I even knew what it was.
Yeah,
it's worked out great.
Before we named it.
Going forward, I really like my house right now, so hacking probably.
Awesome.
I'm Joe, and right now I would say house hacking. We've done both, and I think it all kind of depends on the circumstance.
Wow.
Nomad's amazing.
Nomad is amazing. I agree.
House hacking keeps the peace sometimes.
Okay, fair enough. Whoa, you just skipped your whole row. You're like, forget these guys. I'm going to the back.
I'm Munir. And I don't particularly like either of them because I don't.
What? Munir, what are you even doing here? I don't like either of the things you're teaching tonight, but I'm going to show up anyway.
But if I had a preference, I'd say Nomad would be better.
Fair enough.
Hey guys, my name's Ryan. I'd have to say Nomad just because I know what it is.
Okay.
Happy to learn about house hacking, and I'll let you know after that.
Hey, just Munir's thing made me think of something. How many people don't even look at what's on the schedule? They just show up for class no matter what. Okay, you knew though? Okay, but raise your hands if you do that. You don't care what the topic is, you just kind of show. Yeah, Royce has to, because he's wearing his red name tag. Okay.
Even if it's something you've seen before, you learn something new every time.
I agree. I come here and I teach the class and I learn something new every time. So.
My name's Bob.
Yes, exactly.
My name's Bob. We've lived in our house for 30 years, so I would say Nomad's probably not it.
Yeah.
And I haven't had roommates for at least that long, so.
You've had roommates for that long?
Have not had roommates.
Oh.
I've had a wife. Oh. There's a difference.
He's been living alone. He just didn't know that.
So I don't even know what house hacking is.
Okay, good.
So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. We're going to teach you tonight.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I also want to just learn more about house hacking.
Okay, very cool. Do you know what it is? No. Oh, okay.
My name's Nick. I'm going to say the one that you do.
The one that you do. There you go. Very clever. Well played.
I'm Grace, and I second that.
Yes, there you go.
I'm Michelle, and I prefer Nomad, but I see the benefit in doing both at the same time.
Sure.
Austin and Beth.
Did you hear what Austin said about you last week when you were gone? Did you listen to the recording? Uh-oh. Yes. You should go listen to that, totally. Yeah, you weren't here either. Yeah. People have to go listen to it to hear it. Yeah. I was surprised to see them both this week, I'll say that.
Okay, it was exactly at 8 minutes and no.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I'm Royce, and I don't know anything about that Nomad thing, but this short-term rental nomading is probably the way to go.
Short-term rental nomad.
That's
Okay,
right.
Fair enough.
That's a new model we came up with this week.
Yeah. Do you have the handouts?
Royce already previewed them.
Oh, you looked at them? Okay, cool. Did you tell him what I was hoping?
Memorized every word. He's like.
Ready for the quiz?
You're ready for quizzing? Okay, cool.
Like Mike, what's his name?
So how many people know what Nomad is? How many people don't know what Nomad is? Raise your hand. No, don't know what Nomad is. 1, 2. Royce, you need to put your hand down. Okay, so just 2 people don't know what Nomad is. How many people don't know what house hacking is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 1. Wow, okay, so that's really interesting. All right, so we're going to go over some stuff tonight. What's that? Maybe I will teach some classes on it. We'll see. All right, so there is a podcast. You'll notice it is called the Nomad Real Estate Investing Podcast. Might be a clue. There are about 4 of the most recent Anchorite classes on there. Once it gets past 4, We remove it, we put it in the vault. We kind of like study Disney, and Disney does the exact same thing with their movies. So we decided, hey, if Disney, it's good enough for Disney, it's probably good enough for us. So we started pulling like the 5th class down, putting it in the vault, and then occasionally we re-release it. We put a new cover on it. We call it the Classic Edition or whatever it is, and then the video or audio comes back out. Yeah.
Which one's Mickey and which one's Goofy?
Yes, which one is Mickey, which one is Goofy? It's probably, I don't know. That's hard to say, actually. And I can't pick on someone when he's not here. So there's that, too. There are like 120 classes in the vault. They're available at podcast.ncraig.com. You can go to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, or TuneIn to get all those. Is there anyone who is not getting emails from Holly? Oh, we should do something special for Holly. Holly gave her notice. She got like a dream job and is going to go take another job. So her last day is July 3rd. So how many people have been getting emails from Holly? You will not probably get them in the future. Is there anyone not getting emails from Holly? Okay, so when you sign up, you should get like emails from Holly. We'll probably have emails either from me or Tammy or someone new coming up in the future. There is another podcast coming. Stay tuned. So house hacking versus Nomad. Is there anyone who's been to this class before? I taught it back in 2017. You came? You came? That's it? Munir, you didn't come last time? Okay, cool. Well, you're going to learn some stuff tonight then. So what is house hacking? There you go. Slide 1. You guys get it. So house hacking is, by the way, I have to tell you, I got really good feedback from last week. They told me I need to stay seated as long as possible because whenever I stand up, I apparently like speed up 3 times and I get really excited and you guys can't hear me, you can't understand what I'm saying. So I'm gonna try to stay seated as long as possible tonight to slow myself down so that it's a better pace. So I'm staying seated. So what is house hacking? Buy a property and you live in a part of it and rent out other parts is the simple definition of what house hacking is. You're trying to get extra income from the property you're living in. So one example of house hacking would be buying a duplex. You live in one side, you rent out the other side. That is an example of house hacking. Same idea with a triplex. You live in one unit, you rent out the other 2, or a fourplex. You live in one unit, you rent out the other 3. Those are really easy examples to do. Another one is single family homes where you rent out bedrooms. So you get roommates. If you listen to Mary's interview, Mary is a great example of someone who has gotten roommates and just crushed it. So she lives in a house. She gets like 1 or 2 or 3 different roommates. They pay her, I don't know what it is, $600 a month, $650 a month, $700 a month to live in these rooms. It mostly pays for her entire mortgage by doing that. Okay? So a single family home where you're renting out bedrooms is another example of house hacking. Properties with acreage where you can rent RV space. So that's another example of house hacking where you're getting income from the property by renting out portions of it. You can rent out garage space as well. So people will pay money in order to have use of a garage or a workshop or something like that. Garage space are storage units, accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Those are like mother-in-law quarters or what do they call them? Granny pads or something like that. Granny flats, whatever it is. I don't know, something. But yeah, they're basically like an additional mini unit, usually on the back of your property or over a garage or something like that. And they can be additional source of income for stuff. Short-term rentals, if you're going to live in your property and during the graduation season or some big events over the summer, you decide to Airbnb your property or something like that, that would also be an example of house hacking, getting some income from your property. And you can combine these. So you could have a triplex that also has 2 RV pads and rent out the RV pads and rent out your triplex, or get roommates in your property and or get roommates and be living in a triplex. So you have roommates in your own unit and you have your 2 other units in your triplex rented out. Those are different examples of house hacking. Does everyone now understand what house hacking is? Is there anyone who has questions on house hacking? Is there anyone who thinks house hacking is better than Nomad at this point? Wow, still got some people saying that. Okay. So let's go over what Nomad is. So for those of you that have never seen Nomad presentation before, Nomad is sequentially buying houses. You buy a home. We do it as an owner-occupant. Why do we do it as an owner-occupant? You get a much better interest rate. Were you guys shocked last week when I showed you the difference in interest rates between 20% down non-owner-occupant loans and the owner-occupant 5% down loan programs? Wasn't that crazy? It was like over 1.375% difference in rates between owner-occupant and investor loan rates. Much easier to cash flow when your interest rate's 1.3% plus lower, right? So you buy as an owner-occupant because you can get a better interest rate. Why else do we do owner-occupant? Less down payment. So you don't need to put 20% down. You can put 5% down. In some cases, you put 0% down, like a VA loan or USDA, or there's like, what's the other one? Canvas has a 0% down loan program for owner-occupants. KeyBank has a 0% down loan program for owner-occupants. Compass Bank, I think, has a 0% down. So there's like 4 or 5 zero down loan programs you could use to buy your first property that you could do. And then the ones after that are usually 3% down. Can you do 3% for 2 properties? You can. You could do the first 2 with the conventional 3% down. And then after that, it's 5%, correct? Yeah. So then it's 5%. So you could do like a nothing down loan program, then you could do 3%, 3%, and then you could do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 until you're done buying properties. Okay? So that's another advantage of doing Nomad and why we have to owner occupy. Okay? So we do it for interest rate benefit, we do it for down payment benefit. What's the downside of doing owner occupant? You got to live in the property. You cannot tell them that, hey, I'm going to go buy this property. I'm going to tell you I'm going to occupy it, but you know what I'm really going to do? I'm just going to like not move in, or I'll move in for a week, but I'll really spend my time at my girlfriend's place, so I'm not really there, and I'll have 5 roommates. You know, that's sort of like owner occupying the property, right? What is that called? It's called loan fraud. And you will get free room and board and be able to wear orange all day long if you want to, if you decide to do that. So please do not try to fix the Nomad strategy. Don't come out and say to me, James, the Nomad thing is amazing. You're right, it's like awesome, but I can fix something for you. We're going to actually just tell people we're going to move into the properties, and then we're just not going to move in. We just get all the benefit. We could do like 10 in 1 year that way. Oh, no. It's not the way it works. Okay, so buy owner-occupant, buy a home as an owner-occupant. Am I going to need to separate you two already? It's like not even like 20 minutes into the class. Okay.
We're discussing better Nomad strategies.
Better Nomad strategies? On mic or off mic? Is the mic? Okay. Thank you. So you lived there for a year. Why is it a year? Why are we not living in the property for 5 years? Yeah, so the lender has you sign when you get the loan something that says, I agree to live in the property for the next year as an owner-occupant. And it's from when you move in, because I read this the other day, that actually, because I was like, oh, let me see if this is in yours. So basically, it's like you have to, it's from the date you move into the property, not the date you close. Okay, so it's a year after the date you move in. And if the lenders come back and they say, hey, we're going to go change this, you only need to live in the property 6 months, or you now need to live in the property 14 months, or 2 years, or whatever it is, we will change how we teach Nomad. For now, everyone requires a year, so that's what we teach. If I ever find a lender that has an exception to this, if you ever find one, definitely let me know, and we may start doing different loan programs to be able to speed it up or change the duration. Okay? You have a question? Microphone?
Just real quick, is now all mortgages 1 year minimum, or does some sneak in longer periods of time?
I've never seen one longer than a year. It's like owner-occupant is the 1 year is what I've seen. Have you seen any longer, different than that?
No, it's Fannie Freddie guidelines, so it's just something that's in the law that every bank has to follow.
There you go.
It just says 1 year.
So if they're selling the loan on the secondary market to these quasi-government institutions that are buying all these loans, then they're going to have the 1 year requirement in there and probably have that form be signed. So the question is, are you going to need to go back and check your paperwork for last year? I would assume that is a year. You can try to find it if it's a little bit shorter, but I would just assume that it's a year. Yeah. It's longer than a year already for you? Is it longer than a year already for you?
No, in August.
Okay, so in August, yeah. So you can go under contract right now. You know, if it's in August, you'd have a 30-day closing, you're probably fine. Just check with your lender. Your lender will tell you. All right, so we lived there for a year. Did I kind of cover that one in detail? Everyone good? Then after we live there for a year, we buy another house as an owner-occupant, put 5% down, we move into that one, and then we convert the previous one, the one that we just got finished living in for the year, to a rental property. Does that make sense? Then we repeat this process as many times as you want until you have the number of properties you want. What if you only want 2 rentals? You just do it 2 times. What if you want 15 rentals? You do it 15 times. You just repeat it, get the number of rentals that you want for whatever income you desire in retirement. Does that make sense, everybody? And has anyone come to the class where I showed you buying 20 of these, then selling off 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 of them, and using the proceeds from those sales to pay off the ones that remain to get to free and clear properties faster? Does everyone remember this strategy? It's actually one of the fastest strategies you can do if you want to hit retirement early. You basically buy more than you need, and then you have a larger asset base growing at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever percent appreciation. You have all the debt paid down on all those properties. Then you take all the equity after all the expenses of selling them. You can do lease options to save on a lot of the expenses, or you can sell with a real estate agent if you want to. But you take some of those proceeds and you use those to pay off the remaining houses completely, and then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many you want remaining paid off free and clear, and you have free and clear cash flow on those to live on. Does that make sense? It's one of the fastest strategies by far. Okay. What was I saying? Did I cover Nomad? Any other questions on Nomad? I think I did it, right? You can do as many as you want. We're good? Okay. I'm trying to slow down. Any questions? No questions. You know what's weird about this damp shirt? It's like cold. Like one wet area of my belly is like really cold. Yeah. Well, Holly's leaving, so she's not going to edit it out at this point. So it's going to be on there, my dear. Okay. All right, so why do it? Tammy's shaking her head at me. There are a lot worse things I could say on mic. So let's be happy that this is the challenge accepted. No, it's not challenge accepted. Okay, so why do it? Oh my gosh. This recording is totally useless. We're never using it. So I might as well go off topic. Okay. So why do it? So Nomad allows you to acquire a portfolio of rental properties that will eventually provide passive rental income with little or nothing down. So you can buy all these properties with the 0% down loan programs I talked about, the 3% down loan programs for the two first conventional, and then 5% thereafter. Are there like income requirement restrictions on the 3% where you can't make more than a certain amount of money? Is that one of the reasons why we don't use it for everybody?
On the conforming.
You want a microphone?
On the usual 3%, like conforming one with a slightly higher rate, no. But on the Home Ready, Home Possible, there is, depending on where you are. So all of Fort Collins is income limited.
Okay.
And I think it's like 90,000, something like that.
So if your household income, or is it just the person on the loan?
Household income.
So household income is greater than 90,000. You've disqualified yourself. Good job on earning income. You've disqualified yourself from being able to put 3% down.
Yep.
But otherwise,
yeah, you can do it with like a standard conventional loan, but you're just going to pay a higher rate.
So a slightly higher rate for doing that.
Yeah.
So if you can put 5% down, if you don't need to, then you can do 3%. So that's an option for you as well. Okay, so it allows you to acquire those properties. Our plain vanilla Nomad, the people that haven't handed in their sheet yet, you guys should do that. But the book that Allison's going to give you goes over what the plain vanilla Nomad thing is all about. It just covers all those. Yeah. Did you fill it out? Oh, she'll come over and give you a book. She'll trade you. It's hard to get up. No worries. So the plain vanilla Nomad has you buying 10 houses over 10 years. And I updated the numbers on here this morning when I kind of reran it, because the houses, if you're at your starting point, your house numbers are a little bit more expensive. But if you go 40 years, all the houses get paid off. You basically acquire one property every year for the first 10 years. And then the last one you acquire, you wait 30 years until that one's paid off. At the end of this, you have 10 free and clear properties. And you're living in one. You have 9 rentals. You end up with $11.7 million in equity. And that's in money in 40 years in the future dollars. So it's inflated dollars. If you adjust back to today's dollars, what it's worth today, it's $3.6 million in today's dollars. Think about it that way. You guys do understand that things get more expensive over time from inflation, right? Okay. Do you ever hear your grandparents tell you that they went to the movies for a nickel and they got to see 3 shows and got ice cream and popcorn and got change? Remember this? So that's what inflation is. So you're going to tell your grandkids, we used to be able to go see movies for $19 in 3D. And it was a great time, and popcorn was only $11. And they're going to be like, what are you talking about? It's like $100 to see like a Netflix streaming movie now. And you're going to be like, this is crazy talk. Okay. So money in the future is not the same as money today. So it's $11.7 million of equity in the future, $3.6 million in today's dollars if we adjust back in time. That's what you have in equity. You have $36,000 in net monthly cash flow after your expenses. And I have to apologize. I do not think there's property management included in this one. So you'd have to probably add in property management, because I assumed you were managing it yourself. Actually, I take that back. There is property management in this one. I did the property management correctly here. So it's $36,000 net monthly cash flow after property management, after taxes, after insurance, after maintenance. What am I missing? CapEx, that's maintenance in this case. Anything else? There's no mortgage because there's no more mortgage payment left over, so there's no principal and interest part of your payment. So after all your expenses, your gross rent, minus all your expenses, this is what you're left over, $36,000 net spendable cash flow, which if you adjust back for inflation is about $11,000 a month in today's dollars. So sometimes when I teach the Nomad class for the first time, people see these crazy large numbers. They see like $11 million in like assets, and they're like, James, I don't need that much. You know, if you just gave me, $1 million today, I'd be good. Until I show you like what it takes to live on $1 million. I mean, 4% safe withdrawal rates, like $40,000 a year. So they get some weird stuff in there. So now when I adjust back for inflation, you're really only living off of $11,000 a month in today's dollars in the future. So when I say it that way, it seems much more reasonable for someone to say that seems like a good number, especially when I go and tell you, what did Jamie say that the cost for like the long-term care facility was? Wasn't it like $7,000 a month?
It's like $7,000 a month. Yeah.
$7,000 a month for someone to wipe your butt and give you your pills and stuff like that, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, assisted.
Yeah. So if you're planning for this at some point in the future, you're not going to need to plan for $4,000 a month. You need to be planning for at least $7,000 per person. So this allows you for $11,000 to kind of hit your numbers. I mean, you have some equity, and people don't usually live that long in those facilities, right? What's the average time someone lives there? A few years, 5 years, 10 years?
No idea.
No idea. My understanding is this is not like a 30-year sort of thing.
Even just standard, like if you only need like partial, it's still $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month.
Yeah, so there you go, per person. So you need to have more money than you probably think you do. So if you weren't planning on doing a 10 Nomad plan, you may want to consider doing a 10 Nomad plan. Because I have a lot of folks that say, I'll at least do 2 or 3 or 4. 2 or 3 or 4. Oh yeah, I'm tired of harassing you. Yeah, so I want to do 20. Anyway, I'll show you some charts on the next slide with those numbers. But basically, you often need more than you think you do. So house hacking allows you to reduce your housing expenses. Imagine having a roommate or 2 or 3 that is offsetting a huge part or all of your living expenses. That's what house hacking can do. Okay, that's not Nomad. So I'm going to tell you a story. Anyone here in the military? You were in the military? Were you Navy? Yeah. Submarines? No. Okay. Navy? Army. Yeah, you don't count. I'm a Navy guy. You count, but you don't count in this sort of sense. You guys didn't do hot racking in the Army, did you?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so probably not. So in the Navy, on subs apparently, and I looked it up today because I thought I was imagining for a second. Apparently in the Navy, on submarines, they hot rack. And hot racking is this idea that you have fewer beds than you do sailors on board the ship. And so you actually go and you sleep in your bed, and then when the person who's also sharing your bunk with you is done with their shift, they come shake you and say, hey, you got to go to work right now, get up, I want to go to sleep. And they get up and you get back in their bed. Hot racking. It's a shared bed. Yeah, it's our bed, so basically. So that's what hot racking is. So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not willing to have someone live in my house in a separate room, in a separate bed, realize that some of the military people that are defending our country are literally sleeping in the same bed for you. You're welcome. Maybe. If you're tired enough, I think you're like, hey, I'm just getting in bed right now. Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. So that's what hot racking is. According to 2016 Consumer Expenditure Survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think this is census data, I think that's what that is. The average US household spends $18,886 per year of their $74,664 gross income before taxes on housing. And those are median numbers. So half of them do more than that, half of them do less. And so that works out to be 25.29% of their income on average. I think I saw a study, although I couldn't find it for this presentation, I think I saw a study that showed that the percentage of people's income in Colorado is higher than that. So our ratio of housing to income is actually a little bit skewed toward more expensive housing here, which would make sense to me, but I couldn't actually verify that that number is true. So right now, consider it rumor. Okay? Any questions on why to do this now? You kind of understand some of the benefits of house hacking versus Nomad and the differences between the two? Any questions? Is there any way I can get a glass of water or something? Thank you. Okay. So this is a chart, and I think there's 4 charts here. There's total equity and cash flow for both inflation and non-inflation adjusted numbers. But this is your total equity in your properties over time doing a 40-year Nomad plain vanilla version. I will stand up, for this. So basically, this is when you start acquiring one property. Your equity grows slowly. Eventually, you have all 10 properties at about month 120, because that's when you buy your last one. And then your your equity in your properties as the property values go up, and I think we use 3% appreciation right here, and all of the loan balances go down from debt pay down. Your equity in your property increases until eventually you get to the end here, which is that number I gave you before, which was like 11 point something, if I remember correctly. And this is in year 40. 480 months in. If we adjust, do you have a question? If we adjust, do you have a question? You have adjust for inflation, it looks like this. So this is basically, why are you guys laughing?
Anytime somebody like scratches.
I know, it's like my sign of like question. I'm trying to be attentive. Yeah. You'll desensitize me to questions. Royce. Royce raises his hand above his head like this and goes like scratches his head. Yeah, that's pretty funny. All right, so this is the same chart, except now we are adjusting for inflation over time. You'll notice that it basically curves off and ends up being the same once you are completely unleveraged. Your equity in your properties remains at whatever the property value was times 10, because you have 10 of them. Okay, so you can see it basically peaks out at that. And you could tell they're about $360,000 properties based on having 10 of them, because it's $3.6 million in inflation-adjusted stuff. Does anyone have any questions on equity? That's sort of like the net worth calculation. Awesome. Here's cash flow. So we start off, and because we only put 5% down, why is this negative? Yeah, we put 5% down, so you have slightly negative cash flow. If you had put 20% down, we would have had positive cash flow. But in this case, we are financing the 15% that we didn't put down by having a little bit of negative cash flow on the property over time. But as rents tend to increase a little bit, then this negative cash flow eventually goes away and it becomes completely positive here. So early on, this is the aggregate of all 10 properties, by the way. There's one that starts with, as you keep adding more, it keeps getting a little bit more and more negative. And then eventually you get to the point where some of the earlier ones are now positive, some of the later ones are still negative, but they offset so that your overall cash flow, and this, by the way, this cash flow calculation does include cash flow from depreciation. You guys all learned about that last week when you came to class, the cash flow from depreciation calculation. So the tax benefits of owning real estate gives you a little bit of extra cash flow. So this one right here starts to become positive, and then eventually it becomes more and more positive. What's starting to happen here? You're starting to see houses get paid off. So now cash flow starts increasing as we pay off more and more houses until finally we get to the end where all properties are paid off and your cash flow has been maximized. Does that make sense? And this is the inflation, the future inflated dollar amount. So the dollar amount is whatever this is, $36,000 or so per month. That's future dollars. You got a microphone over here? While I get some beverage.
When you do those calculations, you're doing PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, for payment.
Yeah, so it's principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, property management, and then this particular one, cash flow from depreciation, which is going to be your gross depreciation times your effective tax rate. And I assumed you're at the $60,000 a year income effective tax rate for this particular one.
Are you including inflation on your taxes and your insurance?
Yes, I am.
Well? Okay.
That's a really good question. So because principal and interest remains fixed for the life of the loan, those do not change. Once you lock in your loan, your principal and interest payment remain the same. However, as property values go up, the taxes on that property increase, as does the insurance. And as rents go up, because maintenance on a property is now a percentage of rent, the actual maintenance on the property increases with rents going up as well, and rents are also going up at inflation, which is 3%. So rents are going up, property values are going up, and therefore taxes and insurance are going up with the property value, and maintenance on the property is going up with the rents, as is property management. So all those go up. It's doing it correctly. Trying Trying to think here. Your cash flow from depreciation benefit, though, is always fixed because your depreciation amount is fixed for 27 and a half years. It's based on your initial purchase price minus the cost of the land, everything like that, and it never changes. So the only way it would change is if your income actually changed, and in this case, we've assumed that your income remains the same for the duration. Does that make sense? That's a really good question, though. Did everyone see the benefit of that question? Pretty awesome, right? All right, so any other questions about this? This is the inflated dollar one. What do you think I'm going to show you next? Inflation adjusted, okay? So any questions on this before I show you? This includes mortgage insurance. In this particular case, I increased your closing costs and made mortgage insurance an upfront payment. So it came out in this particular example. We can model it different ways, but in this particular one, I did an extra high closing cost fee, and we did it up front. So that counted as part of your down payment. That's correct. You could actually go ahead and just pay it monthly, but the calculations we're seeing right now, if you have the extra money to do it, it probably makes sense for you to do it. If you don't have it and it's going to prevent you from doing the deal, I think you just pay it monthly. But if you have the extra, how much was it? $4,600 or something like that. If you have the extra $4,600, prepaying your PMI gives you a pretty good return on that money, in my opinion, and it eliminates some risk that the market doesn't quite go up as fast as you think, and you might pay, the cost for an appraisal or two if you miss it the first time in order to make sure that the value is below that 78% loan to value. It's 78, right? 78% loan to value before they'll drop off mortgage insurance.
If you know it's at 80% on the amortization schedule, you can call them and drop it off for you.
Yeah, if they happen to know because the property value has gone up, but the challenge is you need to go get comps and show that, unless you're just looking at you're assuming that the property is the same value as it was when you did it, which is like, I think, is it like 7 years in or like something like that before you get there? Yeah, so it takes a while to do it. So you can go do the calculation and see, is it better for me to pay this up front as one-time upfront PMI, or is it better for me to pay the PMI monthly? These are really good questions. We've got like the expert class going on right now. Like Joe's questioning my math on behalf of Brian. I'm sure like Brian put him up to it. And you're like asking about prepaying PMI and stuff like that. He's got to go read his text for Brian. Okay, he's about to go show this slide. What should I question? Let me make sure his math is right. What do you want me to ask him? Good questions, though. Really good questions. All right, any other questions on this before I move to the next slide? Sweet. So this is same looking chart. Numbers are different because this is the inflation adjusted numbers. So you have negative cash flow. Cash flow becomes increasingly more positive. Once you get to here, loans start getting paid off, starts increasing, and then it finally gets to the point where it's leveled off. All the properties are paid off. You now have free and clear cash flow of about 11 grand. Any questions on that slide? Sweet. I'm going to be done by like 8 o'clock. Okay. Oh, here's a good slide. So looking for unicorns in Horsetooth Mountain Park. All right. So this is it was an article on Bigger Pockets about house hacking. And the article goes on, I'll read you it verbatim because I want you to understand I did not write this. This is what someone else describes. Actually, it's one of the owners of Bigger Pockets, writes about house hacking and how it should work in theory. And then we'll go over like, can you really do this in our marketplace, which not so much. But you be the judge, you decide, okay? So I'm gonna read to you. You find this is him describing what house hacking is and how it should work. You find a fourplex for sale for $200,000. Yeah, right? Yeah. I'll buy all of them you can find for $200,000. So do you think we're able to find 200? By your comments, I suspect that I know the answer, but do you think we're finding a lot of $200,000 fourplexes in our marketplace? What about in Old Town Fort Collins, on acreage? No? You don't think so? Okay. So we're not finding a lot of $200,000 properties, but I'll keep reading for now. Where each unit would rent out for $800 a month. So these are $50,000 units that you're able to rent out for $800 a month. Think about properties you're buying, $300,000 properties. It'd be the equivalent of you renting out like a $300,000 property for, let me think about this, $4,500 a month or something ridiculous like that. Is that right? $4,800? So are we seeing a lot of $300,000 properties that are renting out for $4,800 per month. Okay, so that's what these ratios are. So we're not finding a lot of those either. Now, if we find a unit that's we're buying for $700,000 or $600,000 a fourplex, we probably are able to see at least $800 a month rent for that unit. So the rent number is not bad. It's just the ratio that's off. If you rented out 3 of the units, the total income would be $2,400 per month. I agree with that. Math just kind of works out. Divide that in half, and you are left with $1,200 per month to pay the mortgage. So what this person is referring to is there's this idea that it's kind of like this really rough rule of thumb where half of the income you have from your property should go to expenses, and the other half can be used to pay for your mortgage. Like your expenses like taxes, insurance, maintenance, property management, those types of things. I will tell you, in our marketplace, that's really high. If your expenses on your property are 50%, that's exceptionally high. We should see much lower than that. My rule of thumb is about a third in our marketplace. So if you've got a property that's renting for $2,100 a month, when you pay off the mortgage, you should actually have about $1,400 a month in free and clear cash flow, because about $700 should cover property management, taxes, insurance, maintenance on your property. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is kind of like a weird rule of thumb that he's saying you should have $1,200 left to pay the mortgage. A loan on $150,000, and this is the funny part, because you don't pay full price and then you put something down for a down payment. So he just threw out there, you're getting a property for 25% off. We see a lot of 25% off properties? Any 25% off properties? That's a lot. And even if you said you were doing like an FHA loan and you're putting 3.5% down, what's like 3.5% of 150,000? Like $6,000? Something around there? Like 3% would be, by the way, every real estate agent can multiply by 3%. Don't let them fool you. So 150,000 times 3% is $4,500. Another 0.5% in there, probably somewhere around that $5,000, $6,000 or so number. So he's saying basically that you were able to negotiate it down to about $155,000 or $156,000. Yeah, that's crazy talk. Okay? There's a whole class. I haven't done that class in a long time, but there's a class we teach where we talk about lowball offers, and I show you. We should do this class again. It's been a while since we did it. Hello. So here's how the class works when we do the lowball offer class. I go into the MLS and I sort all the properties in the last year or so by the ones that got the biggest discount from list price. So I sort them by how big of a discount you're able to negotiate, and I print out the 30 best negotiated deals, the ones where we were able to get really lowball offers accepted in our marketplace. And I print out a sheet for everyone who comes to class. And so everyone has a different property. And you go look at the property and you see the crap that people are able to get at these big discounts, and you start to understand how they're getting these big discounts on the property, right? Because nobody wants them. They're really, really, really rough, okay? So I should do that class again, so you can go see how big of the discount is and then how crappy the properties are to begin with. Okay, off my soapbox for a little bit. And I will try to slow down even though I'm standing. Slow down, breathe. All right, so a loan on $150,000 because you don't pay full price and then you put something down for a down payment at 4% for 30 years is about $700 per month. So they're assuming you can get a 4% interest rate on this. Right now, FHA rates were, what are they, 3.375-ish for FHA?
Good credit, 3.25.
3.25 plus you have a 0.85 PMI that never goes away on that property. So you add that back in, you're back up around 4. So the interest rate's about right for an FHA type loan. I would give that, right? Somewhere in that ballpark. So he says $700 a month, which means you could get paid $500 per month to live for free. That's if you can find a $200,000 fourplex in our marketplace and you can negotiate a 25% discount. Hence my unicorn comment. This would be a killer deal. Yeah, no joke, it would be a killer deal. Right? Okay. So 3 questions. Can you find fourplexes for $200,000 locally? And I'm going to answer that question for you tonight with a bunch of data. We'll look at that next slides. Can you rent each unit for $800 a month? In fact, I think that's probably low for most of these, right? Where our market is right now. So likely yes in our current market. And can you get it for a $50K discount? Probably not in our market, but that's another class on lowball offers. So let's take a look at some data unless you have questions. Oh, wait, question.
I really just want to make a comment that this is not this is definitely specific to our marketplace. There are places that, I mean, this still seems like in the craziest markets that this is a deal that you can actually find. But there are ratios that work out to look like this. But you likely are having higher expenses. Appreciation's not going to look the same potentially in those marketplaces,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's true. Yep. And it's hard to live there and commute here for a job. So much more difficult. Any other questions on this? Work virtually? I'd like to see you get your boss to let you work virtually at your job. We shall see. Okay. So this chart is really pretty. I am going to try to explain to you what's going on here, because there's actually a lot of stuff that's happening on this chart. This chart shows you the historical sales of fourplexes in the Fort Collins market going all the way back to 1997. So 1997 is right here. Vertically, it shows you all of the transactions that happened of the fourplexes for sale in Fort Collins in 1997. This is 98, this is 99, so each year it shows you the things, and they're vertically dotted. The people in the back can't see this, but there are little tiny squares. Each square represents a transaction, a property that was listed for sale and sold. Okay? If the property was listed for sale, and you can't see one on this chart, there's a property that was listed for sale and has not yet sold, it would show up as a little green dot. There's none on this chart because there are none actively for sale. No fourplexes for sale in Fort Collins right now. If the property did not sell, there would be this little red down triangle, faint triangle. There's an example of one here. People in the front row could probably see that. Everyone else can probably not. Okay? So the sold ones are the little blue squares. The red ones are the red triangles are the ones that did not sell. And so you can see there's a bunch of little transactions here because they're kind of over each other. When you look at this chart on my website, it's available for clients on my website, but if you mouse over and you put your mouse over any one of these squares, it gives you all the data on that particular transaction. It shows you the address, it shows you what it sold for, what it was listed for, the percentage discount, bedrooms, baths, taxes, all this other nonsense about that property. So you can look at the details and see which one it was, and the MLS number. Then you can go pull up the MLS sheet and look at it if you really want to see it. Okay? So it shows you all these things, so you can kind of put your mouse over and see that. The blue line is the median price that all the properties in that year sold for. So it summarizes the trend of the median, the middlemost price of these things. And those are the ones that sold. The red line is the median of the prices of the properties that did not sell. It's the prices that the market rejected. So you can see the prices that were too high. Those are the ones on the red line. And the ones on the blue line are the ones that the market said, yeah, that's about the right price for that, in this case, fourplex. And the prices are in price per unit, not the price for the entire fourplex. So it is a per unit, so basically the sale price divided by 4. So back in 1998 or so, you used to be able to buy fourplexes in Fort Collins for a little over $50,000 a unit, or about what this person in the Bigger Pockets article thought we could buy properties for today. About 30 years? 30 years ago. No, 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Right? Then over time, prices keep going up such that right here is what's happening today. So there was a property listed in 2019 that was listed for $200,000 per unit, or about $800,000 for the fourplex, and it did not sell. It was removed from the market, did not sell. So right now, there's none that sold in 2019 at all. So not a lot to choose from either. Does everyone understand this chart? This gives you a really good summary of what multifamily properties have been selling for in our marketplace. So if you were a client of mine, you were trying to buy properties like fourplexes, you could go look at historical data and drill down and see like what are prices per unit of things that have been selling, what has the market been rejecting, and we can get a feel for what's happening in the marketplace. The little band, this shows you the 25th to the 75th percentile of price. So it shows you about what the middle half of the pricing range has been, to give you a feel of like where the middlemost half of the pricing has been. So these kind of like blue bars or something like that. And there is a red bar that you can see, but it's harder to see because it's kind of merged in over there. And when you're on the website, if you click on any of these, you could toggle whether they're visible or not, so you could hide everything except the one that you want to see at that point too. Make sense? Okay. So based on this chart, are we seeing a lot of $200,000 fourplexes in Fort Collins? Not $200,000 per unit, $200,000 for all four of them. $50,000 per unit fourplexes. We seeing a lot of those? No, not at all. Not a chance. In fact, the last time that we saw a $50,000 fourplex was probably 2010. And I went and looked at what this property was, and it was a piece of crap. You would not want to live there. Okay? So that was the last time we had a chance to buy a $200,000 fourplex in Fort Collins. Before that, it was 2008, and before that, it was 2002. But there's not been a lot of them. In fact, there was, this is how bad this property was. There was one that was for sale in 2004 at $200,000 that didn't sell. That's pretty crazy. Okay? So this is fourplexes in Fort Collins. Any questions before I move on to some other cities?
Was that 2004 fourplex a dump too?
I didn't look at that one, but it was bad enough that it didn't sell. So I would think so. Okay? Any questions on Fort Collins? This is Loveland. So same idea, same chart. Loveland back here, there were some 50,000 ones. We definitely had some below 50,000. The most recent one looks like it was 2012, just above $50,000 per unit for a fourplex in Loveland. We're starting to see, actually this is interesting, there are no transactions in no fourplex transactions in 2019 yet. So no fourplex listed for sale in Loveland in 2019 yet. Okay? So, but you can see though the price of these things, they've kind of like hovered around this price for a long time, a little dip during the downturn, and now they've kind of exploded since and they've taken off. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. That was Loveland. This is Windsor. Not a lot of data. This is last time we had one was 2015. One got listed for sale, didn't sell. You should know about that one. Okay. These other ones though, this one was at the ones that sold $81,250 per unit, $53,750 per unit, and $66,250 per unit. Those are the only transactions. Not a lot. That's Windsor, small city. This is Greeley. These are the fourplexes in Greeley. A lot more transactions and a much bigger range. Okay? So you can see the red line are the ones that the market rejected. That's the median price of those. You can see it's higher than what actually has been selling for. The blue line are the ones that have actually sold. You can see the band of the ranges. If you're in the front row, if you decided to sit in the front tonight, you can actually see the little squares to get a feel for each individual transaction. But for the $50,000 units, this is the 50,000 line. So there's been a lot of those until the last couple of years. Now it's hard to even find a $200,000 fourplex in Greeley where it's $50,000 a unit last couple of years. But we had them as recently as 2017. Everyone follow? Okay. So if you're looking for these, Greeley may be one of your only chances of the markets we're seeing, right? Windsor's really small, not a lot happening there. Fort Collins is above that price, and Loveland's above that price right now. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Here's Wellington. Not a lot going on in Wellington. All right, so now what I did on this chart is we did fourplexes before. Now what I've done is I've combined duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes all on the same chart, except it's still price per unit. So if it's a duplex, I divide by 2. If it's a triplex, I divide by 3. If it's a fourplex, I divide by 4. And it shows you what the price per unit was this. Now it shows you a lot more data, a lot more range of those. You can see a couple green dots of ones that are still for sale, haven't sold yet. And then you can see the ones that didn't sell in the red line, the blue line to get a feel for that. But this is the $200,000 per unit line. So most of the stuff in Fort Collins is selling for more than $200,000 per unit. Duplex, triplex, fourplex, at least that's where the median is. More than half of them are above that.
What was the two that sold in 2017 for like?
These crazy ones?
Yeah,
I think those were the Old Town ones. There were some Old Town craziness ones. There was one in. It may have also been. There was a really expensive one in. What was it? Park What's the Park Street? It's LeMay. Parkwood, is that what it is? Who said Parkwood? Yeah, there's one over there, really expensive duplex or something like that. Somebody totally pimped it out, overdeveloped it for that area, and it was a duplex, right? And it was really expensive, and I think that sold. It was really nice. Yeah, I couldn't justify the numbers, but it was really nice. Okay? So you got to get what's going on here? Does this make sense? Am I going too slow? Because it feels like I'm moving in like slow motion right now. I am not going to finish on time. Okay, I'll go faster. For clients, I mean, just if you're a client, just email me. But this is the address for clients to be able to go look at these charts if they want to go play with them. And if you're buying any type of multifamily, because I do this for 2 units, 3 units, and 4 units, but I also do it for commercial property, 5 units and above, so that you can see historical price per unit stuff when you're buying like larger commercial. And you guys understand why I separate out. Is there anyone who does not understand why I separate out duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, and then 5 units and above are totally different? Is there anyone who does not understand why I do that? Okay, financing on commercial properties, 5 units and above, is totally different beast than financing on single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. So they're totally separate type of financing. You're never getting owner-occupant financing on a 5 unit and above. The duplex, triplex, and fourplex in the single-family homes, you can get owner-occupant financing for VA loans, VA loans or FHA loans, and then if you're doing conventional, I guess you could do conventional owner-occupant, but most people are doing those for 25% down and doing the duplexes, triplex, fourplexes. Okay? Any other questions on this? Okay, so this is 2, 3, and 4 for 4 columns. Come on. This is 2, 3, and 4 for Loveland. So this is the $100,000 per unit line. This is the $200,000 per unit line. So the stuff that's selling is just below $200,000 per unit in Loveland for the duplex, triplexes, and fourplexes. And it's almost all of it's above this $100,000 per unit. Okay? So you can get a feel for what the price is of what's happening in these markets by looking at this. A little bit less expensive on a whole than 4 columns, correct? 4 columns was over 2. This is just under 2 for Loveland. So Loveland in multifamily is a little bit cheaper. Got it? Greeley, this is the $100,000 line. A lot of range, by the way, right? A lot of properties, and there's a lot of them at the top end not selling. People kind of just fishing for really high-end stuff. But then right over here, this is the $100,000 line. Everything's selling between 100 and 150, so probably in that 120 or so range is what the median price of the multi-units are selling for in 2019 in G-Town. Okay? Any other questions on that? Cool. Okay, so let's go over an example. And I left the numbers the same from the last time I taught this class in 2017. So I'm going to walk you through the numbers on these. There was a multifamily unit that came up today. I printed out that MLS sheet so you can get a feel for that. Do you have that sheet, Tam? So Tammy will go, or Royce will go and grab that with the microphone, and we can talk about what is currently for sale today. But I'll walk you through where this was. This is an example of what you are much more likely to find locally in our marketplace from a couple years ago, and I'll show you what the numbers for today look like as well. So buying a fourplex in Loveland, you can find deals with better numbers in Greeley, probably worse in 4 Collins. As I just showed you, the Loveland prices are a little bit better than the 4 Collins numbers. Okay, the price for this one is $560,000 for a fourplex. That's $140,000 per unit. It's not $50 per unit. Does that make sense? So you're able to get this one 2 years ago. You could have got it for $140 per unit. What's the one that's for sale today?
So this is a duplex for $419,000.
So this is in Loveland. It's a duplex for $419,000, which is basically $420,000. So $210 per unit is what it's selling for right now. It probably is a little bit better condition than this one. This was pretty rough. How many people know where Butternut is? Butternut? Butternut, the one that backs to the railroad tracks in Loveland?
Loveland's blind spot.
Loveland's blind spot. Yeah, if anyone said that there was a rough part of Loveland, that's probably it. Right? Is that unfair? Yeah, so Butternut's a little bit rougher part of Loveland, probably a little higher crime there. And so that was this property. That's where this was. That one I don't think is anywhere near Butternut. It's a little bit nicer part of town. Looks like a brick duplex in Loveland. I printed it out like literally while I was getting in the car to come here. Okay, so 560 versus 210 per unit. the financing options from 2017, which were remarkably close to where today we are. So traditional conventional financing with 25% down, an interest rate of 4.625% with 25% down. Matt, is that pretty close?
I actually don't know on fourplex.
Okay. So 25% down, it's a little bit different for a fourplex. So interest rate, trust me now, believe me later, or talk to Matt after class. He can look it up for you. But an interest rate of 4.625 with no PMI. What is PMI? Private mortgage insurance. So why don't we have PMI putting 25% down? Because you don't have to put PMI down for more than 20% down. And the reason we're putting 25% down, does anyone know? Because it's multifamily. Okay? So we're putting 25% down because it's multifamily. You have to put more down when you're doing multifamily properties. So this interest rate, 4.625, no PMI. FHA owner-occupant rate, 3.5% down payment. So if you put 3.5% down, you can owner-occupy this property. That's the down payment amount. The interest rate of 3.75, which I think Matt told us it was 3.25 today for the FHA, plus 0.85% for PMI. We have PMI because we're putting less than 20% down. The PMI for an FHA loan never goes away. So before, I think John was asking about, or maybe it was someone else, I think it was you, John, talked about when does PMI go away? It goes away usually when you get below that 80% loan to value point. Or you refinance, which you really are refinancing when you get below the 80%. That's the only reason you do it anyway. But the reason why it doesn't go away is because it's FHA. FHA PMI stays for the life of the loan. It never goes away. So you're always paying this 0.85% extra in PMI forever. And that's relatively new for FHA. I mean, a few years, 5 years, something like that. At one point, they used to go away. Okay? FHA VA rate from yesterday was about 3.125. That was from you, actually. I went and pulled that off your email. And then the VA owner-occupant, if you put nothing down, you could buy this property, a fourplex in Loveland, with a VA loan if you're a veteran. Where are my veterans again? So you guys got VA loan benefits. You can go buy this, owner-occupy one of the units, rent out the other three, put nothing down, and the interest rate you'll get was 3.75. It's the same as the FHA rate. So your VA rate now for today would be about 3.125. And the nice thing about VA loans is there's no PMI. Okay? You have a much higher upfront funding fee, which you can finance unless you are you got disability and you've got a reduced funding fee on that. Then you actually don't even need to pay all or part of the funding fee. Okay? But otherwise, you'll be able to go buy this property, nothing down, and you'll be able to get it with no PMI. Everyone follow? So what I'm going to do is run some numbers on this. So you could rent out 3 of the units. For a couple years ago, I thought you could get $1,100 per month for those units. Then to 2017, about $3,300 total, and you're going to live in the 4th one. Bless you. Live in the 4th one at a discount without roommates. So how much of a discount depends on many factors, including how much you put down, the interest rate, and the loan type. So I ran these numbers with a 3% vacancy assumption, 12% for maintenance, which actually may have been a little bit low based on this particular property. It's a little bit rough. And you as the property manager, so you're managing yourself. With a conventional 25% down loan, which would be, how much was 25% of the purchase price? What was the purchase price? $560. What's 25% of that? 10% would be 56, 112. 112 plus 25. It's 130, 141. 140 something. Is that right? Did I do math in front of the room correctly?
You've got 4 units, and that's 140K per unit.
Yes, recognize this correct answer when shown. Good job, Munir. Okay, you got to get him a red name tag at this point. Okay, so conventional 25% down. So you invested $140,000, and you're able to get a $281 a month fee and live for free. So that's the return you're getting, right? You put $140,000 down. Now you're being paid $281 a month, which, if my math is right, is like, I don't know, $3,200-ish, $3,300 per year on $140,000. So your cash on cash is not great, but you're also getting free room, not board. You're not getting food, but you'll be able to live there for free. Okay? With 3.5% down with PMI, your payment would be about $330 per month. So with putting 3.5% down, which I don't know what that is. That's 3% down would be like 16 grand. So about $16,000, $17,000, and your payment to live there would be $330 a month if you did FHA. If you did VA, you actually would only, you put nothing down, your payment would be $153 a month to stay there. This is like, thank you for your service. Good job, guys. VA loans are awesome. Okay? So there are 2-bedroom units. If you get a roommate for the unit you're living in, if you house hack, when you do this, in addition to the house hacking of getting the fourplex to begin with, and you are able to get someone for $500 to $600 a month, which now seems a little bit low, but probably still in the ballpark, probably definitely closer to $600, if not a little higher. You're probably living free regardless of your loan scenario. So if you get a roommate, you can live for free buying this in our current marketplace with like 3.5% down. And the good news about the FHA loan is it is good for people even with credit challenges. I think you can go down to 580 in really exceptional situations, but most times it's like cut off at 620 if I'm not mistaken for stuff that's not exceptional. Is that right?
580 is like the low cut. It can go down to 500.
Oh, okay, so 580 is the low cut. It could go all the way down to a 500 credit score for FHA financing. So FHA is one of those loan programs we'd normally say, hey, if you have credit challenges and you don't have good credit, let's look at FHA as a possible solution for you, because it's one of the easiest ones to qualify for. So easy loan to qualify for, relatively small down payments, a property that is sort of available, like more than the $200,000 fourplex that we read about from Bigger Pockets. But you could do that, and you could literally get a roommate and live for free. Get paid a little bit for doing that. Is that a deal? So that's what it looks like in our marketplace to kind of hit a home run with a house hacking deal. Cool? Any questions? No questions? Awesome. All right, so continuing on here, property appreciates 3% a year. So these are the other benefits. You'll also get about $16,000 in appreciation. So that $540,000 property value goes up about $16,000 a year if you're getting 3% appreciation. You're going to pay down about $6,000 to $10,000 on the loan. It depends on your loan program. If you put 0% down, you're closer to the $10,000. If you put 25% down, you're closer to the $6,000 because you have more than you borrowed. Does everyone understand that? The more you borrow, the more you pay down on your debt each year. When you put less down, you end up having a higher return from your debt pay down. Is that counterintuitive to anyone? Everyone understands why that is? Okay. So you basically have about this much depending on the loan type in year one, and you get those tax benefits. You take the value of the property, you subtract out the value of the land, you divide the value of the property by 27.5 years, and that is the gross amount of depreciation you get. You multiply that by your highest tax rate, and that gives you your cash flow from depreciation. Okay? Watch last week's class if you were totally lost when I said that, but you'll get bonus cash flow from having this property and being able to depreciate it. Okay? And then sequential house hacking. If you were going to buy this, live there for a year, and then you do another one, that's basically Nomad. Right? It's sequential house hacking. You don't have to house hack, it's just you are in this case. Okay? So we talk about house hacking as a way to come up with down payment, improve cash flow, and reduce your housing expenses. That's sort of the benefits of doing house hacking. See a client example. Let's go take a look. So how many people, I'm not even going to mention it. We'll just kind of see if anyone picks up on it. You guys are a smart class. We're going to do it today. All right, so here's an example of a client that has been house hacking and Nomad, an actual client of mine. They bought a duplex in Evans with 3.5% down payment. Which loan program is that? FHA. So they got an FHA loan, they moved in. They lived in one side and they rented out the other while saving up 5% down to purchase their next property. So they moved in, they got a tenant for next door. In this particular case, I'm not going to go into details, but they did have a live-in boyfriend / roommate. So basically there was somebody living with them, kind of helping out with the rent, but we will ignore that for today. Okay? Then, once they ended up saving up their 5% down payment, they bought a single-family home in Greeley with 5% down. Once they moved into that property, the boyfriend was gone at this point, by the way. Once they got there into this new house, they got 2 roommates. The 2 roommates were paying about $650 per month each in rent, and that paid almost her entire mortgage. It's really close. So basically, she put 5% down, moved in, got 2 roommates, $1,300 a month. That offset her mortgage. So really, what she could have done is she could have said, hey, listen, I was expecting to pay a mortgage. I could take the amount that I was going to pay for my mortgage, stick that in a savings account, and that's what I could use to buy my next property. Or she could say, I'm going to pay my mortgage, and the money I'm getting from my roommates is $1,300 a month. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to save it for my down payment for the next property. Either way, it's the same thing, by the way, guys. Either way, serious, it's just how you think about it in your head. Either way, she is having her roommates provide the money to buy her next Nomad property. Does everyone see that? So she's now getting $1,300 a month, which if my math is right, 1,300 times 12 is like, I don't know, 115,000-ish per year? Is that close? 1,300 times 12? I said 15,000. Someone do the math, because I think I'm pretty close. Oh, did I say 150,000? Well, I was thinking 1 0 less in my head, so I'm correct in this case. I am totally correct. Can I get some more water? So basically, you get about $15,000 a year from that amount she's saving up from the roommates. So if she's going to go buy another $300,000 property, how much does she need in order to do it? 5%. What's 5% of 300,000? 15,000. So, maybe she has to stay, if it's like a $330,000 property or something like that, maybe she needs to stay a couple extra months or supplement that with other money she's saving elsewhere. But pretty much their roommates are paying for down payments. Does everyone see that? Is that crazy? Yeah, really, really cool. Okay. Rents out both sides of the duplex for breaks. Oh, yeah. So the duplex, when she moved out of it, she rented out the other side. So now she had a fully rented out unit, and that more than paid for her mortgage on that property. Okay? So I already talked about that. So then she saves up from the roommates' down payment. From the roommates, she gets her down payment. Then she goes and buys a single-family home in Evans with a 5% down payment. She gets 2 roommates. There's 1 roommate upstairs, and the downstairs actually is like this really cool little setup. It's got like a large family room with a fireplace, I think, and like a nice big bedroom and a separate bathroom for that thing. So like the downstairs is almost like this suite. And she's able to get a slight premium on a roommate rent by having someone take the suite downstairs where they get used to that living area and the bathroom and the little bit larger bedroom down there. And so she ends up getting $700 for that one. So $600 and $700, so that's like about $1,300 doing that. And she's able to do that. What does that provide her? The down payment for the next one if she wants to. So she did this. She then rented out this property, by the way. But you can look at it one of 2 ways. I kind of went over that and I told you. Either her roommates are paying for it or she's paying the mortgage and she could save it. Either way, her properties provide the down payment for her next Nomad purchases. Why is that important? Yeah, so she could do Nomad, but does she now need to go and save $15,000 a year from her income? What if she was, a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year person at a job? Is it hard to save $15,000 from like a $30,000 to $40,000 job by yourself? Yeah, it's tricky, right? But this way you can do it. Okay, so let's take a look. Come on. So this is the total amount of down payments you need if you did $360,000 properties or so in our marketplace. So basically this is the first one when it comes to rental. You need about, I don't know, whatever this is, 20-something thousand dollars or so. 20-something, 24, whatever it is. So each one increases as you buy another house. The total amount you needed to save in order to acquire all 10 properties was just under $250,000 or so. That's a lot, right? Especially if you're making $40,000, $50,000 a year. But what did we just say? Where did she get this from? Roommates, right? She needed the first one. She had to come up with that money, the 3.5% down to buy the first one, but then she had some roommates when she moved into the other one and she was able to get them to fund it. So she didn't need to save up this money in order to get there. When we did, how many people came to the class where we did how to acquire a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio earning $5,000 a month? Yeah, and you remember that one? What did I show you? Is that if it took you a while to save, it just pushes down the line when you acquire properties. It just took you longer to save up that amount. In this case, she's able to do it in 120 months really fast because she's got roommates saving for her. She didn't have to save it from her income anymore. She had to save the first one or two. Or do a 0% down loan if she didn't have that 3.5% down to do that first one. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is the down payments, but there's something else, right? Remember I told you we had negative cash flow on these properties? So what if I summed up all the negative cash flow, and not like what's negative after you have some that are some positive ones, right? Because once you get down to property 7, 8, 9, some of the earlier ones have positive cash flow, which really offsets your negative cash flow. What if I really handicapped the math and I said, if it was negative, let's show what the negative amount was, not what it was offset by. Let's just show how bad it was if we had all of our negative cash flow added up. Is that fair? What if we did that? We'd have pretty significant negative cash flow, right? Because each time you're buying a property, you're adding to more negative cash flow. That's this. Shows you the amount of negative cash flow you had before it becomes all of them positive. So that's pretty significant. That's like $160,000 worth. That's pretty significant negative cash flow on all the properties, wouldn't you think? What's so interesting about this, though? What's one of the benefits of investing in real estate? What's one of the 4? Depreciation. So you have tax benefits, and the cash flow from depreciation actually offsets the overwhelming majority of that. Plus, we talked about this. Once you get to like 4 or 5 houses in, some of the earlier ones start becoming positive, and they start to offset some of the new ones. So this is like worst case if I just added them all up and I showed you what the number was. But really we have cash flow from depreciation offsetting this, and we have the cash flow from some of the properties actually funding some of the newer ones we're buying. So you get help from 2 sides. Okay? If you show these together, though, the sum, they're like over $400,000, but Nomad gets funded by roommates when you house hack. Right? So all the down payment gets funded from the roommates, and the depreciation, cash flow from depreciation offsets a lot of that cash flow, especially with the other properties. So you no longer need to come up with this money. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any questions? All right, Nomad loan basics. So this is sort of like my rough slide for what order you should do loans if you can get them, if you're going to do Nomad. And we have a whole class on financing, which is coming up. I forget what day it is, but it's going to be amazing. But for now, for tonight, you guys will get the benefit of this. So here's the preferred order if you have the ability to do these loans. If you don't, just go to the next one. So my VA people here, if you can do a multifamily VA loan, you should do that first. It's the best loan program. If you can buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex with that loan, you should do it first. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody's already bought a single family home and they want to move into a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex, it is harder for them to convince an underwriter to approve them for moving in from a single family home to a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Yeah, Matt is nodding yes and saying it is difficult to do that. So really, you want to buy your duplex, triplex, or fourplex first if you can, because it's easier to convince an underwriter you're going from a multifamily to a single family home. It is hard to go the other way. Okay? So if you can get VA, do that. And by the way, the VA is not a single loan, you're done sort of scenario. It is an amount of benefit. So in some cases you may, probably not as much here, but in some cases you may be able to buy more than one home on a VA loan. Does that make sense? So do as many as you can, maybe more than one, but probably just going to be one. Is everyone cold? Is it a little cold? Okay, just you. You're the only cold one.
I'm also cold.
Oh, you're also cold?
I am cold.
Okay. It's cold? Do you want to? I talked to her last week. She said we can. She said it'll go back to normal. Just don't like ruin the program. Just. Okay. So do as many as you can with VA. It's probably going to be one. By the way, if you're not a veteran, you skip that one because you can't do it. Or marry a veteran. Right? There you go. So do VA. Once you're done with VA, next one is multifamily FHA. That's the 3.5% down loan one. You can do an owner-occupant. Can you do VA and then FHA? Yes, you can. So if you're a veteran and you want to go do your VA loan to go buy a fourplex, and then the next one you do is a FHA loan to go buy a duplex or triplex or fourplex again, you could do that. So the veterans can actually do multiple ones. Most of us are not going to be able to do that, although I'm a veteran. Okay? So multifamily VA. Multifamily FHA is the next one. Then after that, conventional. Okay? So then you start moving to the conventional loans. If you can do the 3%, do the 3%, 3%. If otherwise, you're doing 5% for the rest of them. And there is no limit to the number of those that you can do. At first I thought it was 10 because there used to be a limit, a hardcore limit. Now there's no limit. And I don't know when they changed it, but they told me they changed it a while ago and I just was not up to date. But you can do more than 10 as long as you can qualify with your ratios. Okay? Just keep doing those. You could refinance, once you get to 20% equity in your FHA property, you could refinance your FHA loan into a conventional loan, and then you free up your FHA loan spot. You can only have one FHA loan at a time with some really unusual exceptions. For example, your parents pass away and they had an FHA loan on their property and you inherit the property. Okay? Or you move more than 100 miles from one city to another and you're able to requalify with your FHA benefit. But it's really unusual. Don't plan on having 2 FHA loans. So this is the exception though. You can go refinance the FHA loan into conventional and then reuse your FHA benefit in order to buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. But it's going to be really hard to convince the underwriter that you're living in this really nice single family home. Why would you go want to live in a piece of crap duplex, triplex, or fourplex? They have a hard time believing it. Okay? All right. Owner-occupant financing, you have to move in, right? Avoid loan fraud. It's usually 12 months. We talked about that. Can you just say you're going to live there and not move in? There's only 2 people that know the answer to this question. Let me ask one more time. Can you just say you're going to live there and not move in? No, you, Roy says, maybe. No, you cannot. Okay? And if Brian was here, he would tell you about one of his tenants actually went to jail or prison for loan fraud. It is like not a joke. They will literally throw you in jail. Okay? Basic idea is that multifamily first, if possible. What if you can't, we just looked at the number there was. What if you can't find a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex around here? Should you hold out? Should you wait the 3 or 4 years it's going to take you to find the duplex, triplex, or fourplex? What do you think? No. Why not? Isn't this so much better that you should definitely wait for it? No. I don't think so. Okay? I'll just show you some charts about how many there are. Roommate counts as landlord experience can make it easier for you to qualify for your second loan. Do you guys apply this? So if you have a roommate and you have a lease with them, doesn't that count as landlord experience so that you can start to do things?
It can, but we usually don't care about landlord experience. Usually it's just you have a signed lease when you're moving out to the next one. Cool, you're offsetting your income, you're good to go.
There you go. So there you go. You have to have a lease if you're going to do that. Plus, you may be able to use your roommate rent to qualify in some cases. All right. Any questions on loan basics? Awesome. This is the number of duplex listings by year going all the way back to 1997 for like 10 cities in the Front Range, or Northern Colorado Front Range, I should say. So it shows you all the different number of duplex. The most that were ever listed was just under 70, and I bet you this was Greeley. So Greeley had a bunch, but you can see the trend is we used to have a lot more listed. We definitely went through a drought around 2011 and 2012. We're seeing a few pick up here in 2014. Now we've got a decline. There's really not a lot of duplexes available coming up for sale. So the number that you have to choose from is really, really small. So if you think you're going to hold out for a duplex, don't do it. If you find one, great. If you happen to be shopping and there's one that makes sense, let's do it. Otherwise, don't wait for it. Okay? This is triplexes. So again, this is Greeley, just over 20. But you can see the trend is that there's really not that many out there. Okay? And then here is fourplexes, same idea. The most is tied for 30 here. What is this? Longmont? Yeah, it looks like Longmont. And then right up here is Greeley. So most of the time, though, there's very few happening for the fourplexes. Not a lot of fourplexes, duplexes, triplexes available. Any questions on that? Okay. Occupancy limits. So how many people like just heard about house hacking? You're like, I've got this amazing idea. I'm going to go find an 8-bedroom property. I'm going to get 7 roommates to give me $600 or $700 a month, and I'm going to make a killing. Right? How many people know about occupancy limits? Raise your hands. Okay, so let's go over that. It limits the number of people that can be living in a property. Holly did some research today, but make sure you go do your own. Please do not write these down and say, but James told me the rule was you could have 4 people in your property at any given time, and so I'm going to go buy my property based on this. Before you go and buy a property, call up the city zoning for that, where that property is, and if you're going to go try to do like a roommate sort of dealio, check with them. Say, I'm thinking about getting 6 roommates here. Is that a problem? And see what they say. Okay? There are city and county specific in our area. So you're not just covered by one, you're covered by both. So tonight I'm going to go over Larimer County, Fort Collins, Greeley, Loveland, Timnath. We were told when Holly called, it's the same as Fort Collins. So make sure you check that. Windsor, and then Wellington, and Wellington says they're the same as Windsor. Which, why would you ever want to be the same as Windsor? I mean, of all the places to be the same as, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so let's go over this. Here's Larimer County. This is the website address. Just go search in Larimer County occupancy limits if you really want to know. There is a downloadable PDF with a bunch of details. Royce or Tammy has a copy over there. I printed out one of those. But if you really want to go read through what they have on their website, you can see a copy or go download it yourself. But this is how Larimer County kind of reads. It says, a single family dwelling may be occupied by one living unit. Okay, let's go see what it is. A living unit, according to Larimer County, is defined as one family plus up to 2 additional individuals whose place of residence is with the family in the dwelling unit. So, me, Tammy, our 2 kids, and then Royce and Jamie can live with us. Does that seem right? I think that's valid. What if we want to have a foreign exchange student come visit us for a little while? Can they also stay? No, they cannot. Kick Royce out. What if Royce's brother wanted to move in with us? Could we do that? No. Could not. Okay? A family is defined as an individual or group of people living together who are related by blood, marriage, or adoption. So, remember, the living unit is one family plus up to 2 additional individuals. So the family can be anyone who is related by blood, marriage, or adoption. So here it gets crazy, right? It could be me and Tammy, we're related by marriage, our kids who are related by blood, my mother related by blood, her brother related by blood, plus Royce and Jamie. Right? Does it matter if Royce and Jamie are married? I don't think it does.
But what if Royce and Jamie were married and then you had another one? Could you have another person?
I don't think so. I think that it's Royce and Jamie because it's that 2 additional individuals. It's not 2 families. It's one family. Yeah, what's the question?
So could you screen tenants based on that criteria?
I think you have to. And I'm going to get to that here in a minute. Yes, I think you have to. You have to tell them this is the occupancy laws for the city. You have to abide by that.
You're going to house hack. I'm going to have this room, and whoever I put in these other rooms.
Where's the microphone?
Be related.
You could do it that way. The question was, can you do it like you're going to house hack, you are like one of the extra people, and then you can have a family that lives in that whole thing as like the extra people. Could you pass her the microphone? Thank you.
You can have 3 unrelated individuals.
Fort Collins is different than Larimer County.
Sorry.
We're going to get to Fort Collins in a minute. Every city has their own rules. And they're crazy. They're not all the same. Okay? Okay, and I'm going to go through some examples for Fort Collins because they're one of the clearer ones. They actually have examples of what you can do and what you can't do. All right. So I read you the definition of what a family unit is. Vacation or other, this is a continued quote, vacation or other rentals of single-family dwellings for less than 31 days, Royce, are not allowed in the unincorporated area of the county without review and approval by Larimer County. The Land Use Code addresses rentals in its definitions of dwellings. If a single-family dwelling is rented, the rental period must be a minimum of 31 days. Use of a single-family dwelling property as a rental unit cannot convert the property to use contemplated by tourist or accommodation zoning. For example, as a resort cabin, providing single-night transient rentals. Resort lodge cabins may be allowed through the special review process or other processes in certain zone districts. Contact planning staff at the number right there, or via email for information about the review process options. So anything outside city limits, if you're thinking you're doing short-term rentals with, you're going to need to get approval. And there's a whole section on there for them to approve you. Okay? Accessory dwelling units in the county. The common ones are accessory living areas, guest quarters, extended family dwellings, and then farmstead dwellings. You must call them and have a discussion with them before applying because they're going to want to do some criteria with you. And I believe there's some costs of doing that. And then the spot on the website is this address on there. It's like dwellings/accessory. There is a downloadable PDF with info, which I also printed out and put back with Royce. You can come see him after class and go look through that. Okay? Anyone have questions on Larimer County? Awesome. Fort Collins, the U+2 law. By the way, when I was doing research for this particular stuff on the Fort Collins one, Fort Collins must have paid for a study to have done on occupancy limits and rental properties and like the impact of occupancy limits and stuff like that on the whole city. There's like a 180-page, it's like 180 pages, right? 180-page report that they paid someone to put together with like really dense data and charts and everything all about the impact of occupancy limits and short-term rentals and things of that nature. I might do a whole class on that. Let me find out right now, would you guys like me to go and digest 180 pages of charts and stuff from the city of Fort Collins and do a class on that? Raise your hand if you'd like to see me do it. Okay, raise your hand if you would not like to see me do it. Okay, so apparently most people want me to do it. I probably will end up doing a class on that then. Okay, so here's the Fort Collins U+2. They have a really good website for this. So if you have any questions about what's allowed, what's not allowed, go to their website. They have examples, which I'll go over tonight, but then call them and ask them questions if it's kind of an unusual situation. So here's what their definitions are. Occupancy in a residential dwelling unit, single family, duplex, multifamily, is restricted to one family as defined below, section 5.1.2, and not more than one additional person. So a family and one person. Or one adult and their dependents, if any, a second adult and their dependents, if any, and not more than one additional person. So let's say Royce has kids from his first marriage. He's got 12 of them. And then Jamie has kids from her first marriage, and she's got 2. And they decide to live in a property together. Royce with his 12 kids, Jamie with her 2 kids, and I, if I decided to live in that zoo, could live there together. If Tammy wanted to live with us, that's a no-go. Correct. Crazy, right? So what does this mean? Some examples from the Fort Collins website. First, the definition of family, I think. Yep. Oops. Family shall mean any number of persons who are all related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, or other duly authorized custodial relationship, and who live together as a single housekeeping unit and share common living, sleeping, cooking, and eating facilities. If you're trying to separate people out and say, you don't get used to the kitchen, that changes everything. The occupancy limits are further defined in Land Use Code 3.8.16. So what's okay? Let's take a look. This is what's allowed. These are examples from their website, so please do not argue with me about how it's not correct. I copy and pasted from the website, guys. So last time I taught this class, Brian was like telling me, that's not right. I'm like, dude, I copy and pasted. This is not like me making stuff up. All right, so a family of any size and configuration seems pretty reasonable. A family of any size and configuration and their nanny. So you can have a nanny. A family of any size and configuration and an exchange student. One exchange student. 2 single parents, their kids, and a friend. My example with Royce and Jamie. Royce with his 12 kids, Jamie with her 2, and me. That would be okay. 2 siblings and 1 friend. So if Royce and I were brothers, we could live in a property and we could have 1 friend. We can have Brian live with us. Okay? We couldn't have Brian and Munir live with us, though. 2 married couples, as long as a familial relationship exists linking the 2 couples. So, an example like this might be, if Royce and I were brothers, me and Tammy, and Royce and Jamie could live together. Right? Okay. What's not okay? Not allowed in Fort Collins. These are examples from the website. 2 couples, married or not, with no familiar relationship linking couple A to couple B. So Tammy and I, whether we're married or not, doesn't matter. Royce and Jamie, whether they're married or not, doesn't matter. We cannot live together unless Royce and I are brothers. Or polygamous? I don't think that's true, actually. Let me read this rule again.
It's recognized by the state
I don't know if that's marriage or blood or custodial relationship. I don't think that counts there, Munir. I don't think that works. Okay. So I think we talked about not relinking. 2 siblings and their 2 or more friends. So Royce and I are brothers. We cannot have 2 of our friends live there with us. Not allowed. Okay? A family of any size, a caretaker, and an exchange student. Now I'm going to blow your mind. Ready for this one? How many people have ever had their girlfriend or boyfriend stay over at their place most weekends? Or a week at a time, week at a time, week at a time, or mom or dad came out when you had a baby and they stayed at your house for 45 days. Guess what? Anyone who spends more than 30 nights in a dwelling in a 12-month period counts as an occupant. 30 days, not consecutive, 30 days total. Amir?
The example of the parents coming out, that's okay because they're family.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on like where you fall on this thing, right? Yeah. So a frequent guest could be considered an occupant. Which, I don't know how they would interpret this, but if you have 2, let's say you have 2 different people, they're never there at the same time, but one comes out for 45 days and another one comes out for 45 days later on in the year, I don't know, you may be over the limit because that counts as an occupant for the year, which is really weird to think about. Okay. Yeah. BANANAS. Any other questions on Fort Collins? Not allowed.
You should mention it's $1,000 a day.
I'm getting there. I'm getting to what the fine is. So here is the Fort Collins occupancy limit disclosure. So how would you know about this law? It is required. This form from the city of Fort Collins is required every time a property is sold and every time a property is leased. So if you have not been doing this form, shame on you. I'm going to show you what the penalty is, and you really need to get your act together because there's a fine for not having the form. You must keep a copy and provide a copy to the city upon request. Okay? Now, last time I taught this class, Brian was quick to point out that there are 2 different versions of this form. There's this one for sale and there's one for rental. The one for rental actually says this quote, "Actual signatures are required for this form. It is required that this form be verified by electronic means," meaning you emailed it to them and have proof that you emailed it to them signed, "or that it's notarized." So if you're not going to actually email it to them and and make sure you have a confirmation and proof that it was emailed to them, you need to have it notarized by somebody. Attached to your lease and a copy kept at the lease property or on-site management office. The shaded areas are for notary use. If the form is not notarized, the shaded areas should be left blank. Okay? So the rent version of this form, you should email the signed version to your tenants and keep a copy of the email as proof that you sent it to them. Royce has a copy of the form if you want to go look at what you should be doing, but it's downloadable from the website.
Is that Fort Collins only?
Fort Collins only. That's correct. It's a Fort Collins statute. Okay. So what happens if you don't comply? Is it a big deal? Just don't do that again, James. Bad boy. Not a big deal. Just kind of let it go, right? No. Let's see what happens here. Upon receipt of a complaint, staff begins an investigation. So imagine for a minute, we're living in this property. We've got 4 cars, and the cars are parking along the street, and one of the tenants continues to park in front of the neighbor's house. You can literally park wherever you want on a street, right? There's no rule that says you own the parking spot in front of your house. Everyone understands that, right? But if your neighbor always has someone else's car parked in front of their property, at some point, they're going to get pissed off. Because they're not going to be able to park, and they're just going to get upset, and they're going to look and say, there are more than 3 people living in that property. And they're going to file a complaint. And so upon receipt of a complaint, the staff begins an investigation. I will also tell you that there are multiple full-time staff people at the city of Fort Collins that are doing enforcement. That is their job, to go look for violations. So it doesn't even have to be a complaint, but if there is one.
They try and justify their job.
Yeah, they're trying to make their quota. And once you see the fees, it doesn't take that many. Okay? Staff may contact the owner or property manager and request a copy of a signed occupancy disclosure form. Remember that form? They can request a copy. These forms have been required since December 2005. So, oh, I don't have one. It's only been rented 2 years. It was before this thing. Oh, no. That's not an excuse. 2005. Okay? And there's a potential $1,000 fine for not having the form. Don't have the form, $1,000. If the investigation produces reasonable cause to suspect overoccupancy, a city inspector gives notice to all tenants, the landlord, and the property manager stating that they may receive citations. A reasonable amount of time will be given to correct the overoccupancy and come into compliance. Here's the important thing, and this is a quote from the website. A citation may be issued immediately or at any time during the process. So it's not like you're guaranteed a grace period to fix this thing. They may say, guess what, you're in violation, we're issuing a citation, you have 30 days or 10 days or whatever to fix it, but you're still getting fined. If a citation is issued, correcting the situation does not relieve any of the parties of the potential fine. Just because you fixed it does not mean you are not being fined at this point. The penalty can be, pause for dramatic effect, pull up my pants. The penalty can be $1,000 per person per day the home is overoccupied. So if you have a guy in there and they've been there 30 days over, that's $30,000.
Where's the money? Drop it.
Does that fee go to the landlord, or does that go to per person that lives there? So the people who are
That's
overstaying.
the owner that has that fine.
Yeah.
Is my understanding. Yeah. Okay? And so I think this is really snarky of them, right? But this is what they wrote there. So as such, prompt compliance is encouraged. Right? It's like, we're going to charge you $1,000 a day per person. You probably should comply. Kind of smart-assy, right? Okay. Any questions on what happens if you don't comply?
Have you ever known anybody that...
The question was, have I ever known anyone that got fined? I do not know of anyone that got fined. I have to think about that, but I don't think I know anyone. Nope. I can't think of anyone. Okay, Greeley. So that was Fort Collins. Greeley, basically they break it down into 3 zones. Low density, which is 1 single family home per lot occupied by a single family, and family is equal to any number of people related by blood, marriage, or adoption. Medium density, single or 2 family dwellings and townhomes of up to 4 units per lot, each unit occupied by a single family unit. And then high density, no limitation on relationship of persons in the units to each other, but there are maximum occupancy standards based on square footage. So if you've got questions about Greeley, go look at that. And Royce has a couple sheets back there for the Greeley one. But it doesn't seem official, but it's on their website. So here it is. So a family as defined by Greeley housing occupancy standards. Family for the purpose of housing occupancy within, city zoning codes is defined as one of the following. 1 person living alone, that's okay. Any number of persons related by blood, marriage, or adoption, that's okay. Up to 2 unrelated persons and their blood relatives, excluding any persons related only by marriage. And then it says covenants within a neighborhood HOA may be more restrictive than your rules enforced by the city. So the HOA you're living in may say, no, this doesn't apply, these stricter things apply. And Tammy and I have seen this, although the HOA actually reduced their criteria and said, we will go with what the city has said. But there was a more restrictive covenant from the HOA. Do you remember that? Okay, the city does not have a list of such additional restrictions, nor will it enforce private covenants. So the city's not going to enforce them, the HOA must. Please check with your HOA regarding these restrictions.
So that would not include a girlfriend and boyfriend.
A girlfriend and boyfriend up to 2 unrelated persons. So that would be okay. Girlfriend and boyfriend living together in Greeley is okay. Yep. Okay, Loveland occupancy standards. This is Loveland's rule. An individual or either of the following groups living together as a single housekeeping unit and sharing common living, sleeping, cooking, and eating facilities. 1, any number of persons related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, or other duly authorized custodial relationship, unless such number is otherwise specifically limited in this title. Or any unrelated group of persons consisting of A, not more than 3 persons, or B, not more than 2 unrelated adults and their related children, if any. That's the Loveland one. Any questions? Windsor, which is also Wellington, apparently. In a dwelling, you can have single family or 4 unrelated adults or 2 unrelated adults and their children. And Holly said she sent them an email about having a family plus 1 unrelated roommate because the guy I spoke to wasn't sure. He said generally if you have more people than bedrooms, it might be an issue. So that's the unofficial word when she talked to the city. All right. Now I think I've got a couple slides. Yeah, Munir. Wait. Microphone.
Just before we move on, is anybody aware? Now I know Fort Collins is very strict about this. I don't believe the others are quite as strict.
I think that's true. I don't think they have full-time compliance people, but you don't know when they're going to change that either. So I wouldn't go buy a 9-bedroom property thinking, oh, they're not checking, and then they start checking and they say it's $1,000 a day just like Fort Collins either. I mean, that could be gnarly. Okay? And would the value of a 9-bedroom property that you were just crushing it with be the same after the code got changed? No, right? So you're going to get screwed selling it too. All right, here we go. So Fort Collins Loveland median rent. So I went and I looked up the 2018 Q4 Colorado multifamily vacancy and rental survey numbers. So this comes from multifamily properties. I have some additional data on single family homes that Royce has in the back, which he's probably going to comment on in a second here. So these are the numbers though. An efficiency unit is $892. That's what it was for Q4 2018. A 1-bedroom unit was $1,197, almost $1,200 for Fort Collins Loveland area. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath was $1,239. But check this out. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath is $1,415. So if you're out looking for properties and you're looking at 2-bedroom, 1-bath properties, unless it's like crazy more expensive to go for a 2-2, you probably should try to do that. Because it seems like you're going to get a lot of extra rent, almost $200 more rent for doing that. And if you think about the rule of thumb is, for every $10,000 you borrow, it's $50 more per month. So you can almost afford to pay $40,000 for that extra bathroom. Does that make sense? It's crazy. 3-bedroom, $1,580, and that's where it stops. These are the numbers that they had in there. No extra rent for an extra bedroom and bathroom. So kind of like take that into account. When we're looking at new construction, there's a builder in town. They have a 3-bedroom model. They have a 4-bedroom model. What's the price difference between the 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom model new construction typically? About $10,000. How much does it cost for you to finance $10,000 again? $50. So do you think you're going to get more in rent than $50? You probably should get the 4-bedroom. Make sense? Okay. So what does a roommate pay? Discuss amongst yourselves. We're getting close in time, so you can discuss afterward. Raising rent, there's a whole bunch of stuff here about raising rent. Charging roommates for access to your internet, if you're going to pay for that. Say, hey, listen, rent is $600 a month, but if you want access to our high-speed internet, it's an extra $20 a month, kind of contribute to that. Utilities, sharing utilities, access to a washer and dryer, if you're going to do roommates like that. Garage and other storage, rent is $600. If you want to be able to park your car in the garage, it's an extra $50 a month or $75 a month or whatever it is that you decide to do. So these are all extra avenues for rent. And there's a whole section on there for doing that in the cash flow explosion class. Any questions on this? Do you want to bring up some stuff about what you found on those numbers? The rent numbers. Yeah, the ones that were interesting to you. Oh, okay. So Royce has in the back of the room some rent numbers for different cities, both condo and apartment, and then also standalone single-family homes. And the interesting thing that you should go look at when you're over there is the difference in rents between number of bedrooms and whether or not you should look at a 3-bedroom unit or a 4-bedroom unit or a 2-bedroom unit or a 3-bedroom unit or whatever it is. Go talk to Royce afterward, and he'll share the sheets with you so you can go look at that. Because if you're looking at things, you could say they're not exactly the same. But you can go look at those and see, hey, it's going to cost me an extra, whatever it is, $20,000 to get an extra bedroom. What extra rent might I be able to get? And you can use that to determine which ones you should be looking at to get those numbers. Okay. And then there's a whole bunch of resources we have on screening tenants and roommates. You screen roommates the same as you screen regular tenants. Please do not just say, oh yeah, you look like a nice guy, I'm going to let you in. Do your full tenant screening on those people. So whether Nomad or house hacking, traditional rentals, screen tenants using best practices. There's a whole section here on tenant screening. All the classes Brian taught on how to do that. Solving tenant challenges. And then we do have a lease for clients, a $6,000 lease that we pay the attorneys for. We do have a version of that for roommates. So there was a client in this room whose brother, who also bought a house, was wanting to get a lease for roommates. So we paid the attorney to convert our lease to a roommate lease. And so there's a roommate version of our lease as well. So if you're looking to do that, there's a version of that that has been attorney reviewed. Of course, have your own attorney check it before you use it, but that's it. And then there's a kind of point that was made in the last class. Lock up your personal room if you're renting it. Make sure you have a lock on your room, and probably get yourself a safe for personal documents. Be firm but fair with your roommates. Here's the question that always comes up. Do you tell your roommates that you're the landlord? Do you tell them that you're the property manager? Do you tell them that you're the owner? I think you do, but it's up to you to discuss that and whether or not that's going to impact your property management, your asset protection strategy. Okay? If they don't pay, evict. Be charitable with your choice of places. Don't be charitable just because they happen to be your roommate. Okay? Pick your charities. Okay, so this is basically property selection criteria when you're buying for Nomad and house hacking stuff. So for Nomad, we tend to be below median price. We tend not to be at the very bottom end of the market. We like to be what's called the second quartile. So imagine you list all the properties from the most expensive up here to the cheapest here. This is the middlemost point. This is the cheap stuff. This is the 25% cheapest stuff. We tend to be in this 25 to 50 percentile. You don't want the very low end of the market. We sort of want the second quartile. That's where we typically are. Now, it's up to you where you want to be in there. If you're doing new construction, Nomad, where you like to buy new properties every year, we tend to be the least expensive new construction you can find. Maybe not the cheapest, but probably very, very close to the cheapest on the bottom. Maybe one or two up, okay? Yeah, question, microphone?
Does that end up in more CapEx if you're buying cheaper built properties that...
Yes. I mean, for new construction?
Yeah.
So they tend to not be the low end of the market. They tend not to be in that first quartile anyway. So the percentage for capital expenses tends to be decent because it's in that second quartile. Are you asking if you're buying like low quality builders, if your capital expenses tend to be a little bit higher? I think it can be a little bit, but you're going to get a long delay for the first few years anyway. But then you're going to have like your countertops, because you're not getting granite, are probably going to be replaced sooner than if you bought, the tier up where you have granite countertops or something like that, or you had engineered hardwood floors instead of regular sheet vinyl and just like entry builder grade carpet, but not much. No. Okay. Additional house hacking criteria. So look at extra bedrooms and baths, and remember the rule: $10,000 that you finance is about $50 a month. So take that into account as you do your analysis of adding bedrooms and bathrooms. Separate entrances, basement suites, mother-in-law quarters, opportunities for extra income like storage and parking, Airbnb setup instead of roommates. Be super careful. There's evolving laws and ordinances about Airbnb, a whole bunch of stuff related to that. Also, there's an extreme downward pressure on Airbnb pricing, in case you were not aware of that. So as more and more people think that this is like the holy grail of income, we're seeing more and more people come on, which is driving pricing down. And so just be super aware. And people that don't really run their numbers, they forget that you've got cleaning crews for all your Airbnb stuff, which significantly eats into your profit. The overhead property management expense, if you're not doing it yourself, on the low end, it's 4%. I've heard for property managers to manage just your ad and do some of the initial calls. They'll do like a 10% for kind of like setting up your things, and then as much as 25% for like full service, like if you're out of the area and you have them running your Airbnb. It starts really eating into your profit, and realize too, you also have lodging taxes to take care of. So it's not as good of numbers as you might think at first glance. Make sure you run all your numbers right and take that into account. Yeah, a lot of HOAs don't allow it, and cities have rules. And there's some new, like Denver's going after a couple right now because they were doing something where they claimed it was their primary residence, although it was not their primary residence. And so there's a lot of restrictions. Be super, super careful about doing anything like that.
And if it's in Fort Collins, just like the occupancy, they are actively
Checking.
Checking.
Yeah, they're going on Airbnb
they
and
look
checking
on
your
the,
address.
The site, checking your address, see whether you've applied a license with them.
Yeah.
And also, just for your own caution, they only allow the owner to do it. So if you have a tenant and that tenant tends to be out of town a lot, watch out. They may be Airbnb-ing your property.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this recently, I think, was sparked by a discussion I had with James. There was a podcast that was talking about Airbnb-ing some properties and how profitable it can be. And I mentioned that this can potentially, for the right person, be a good way to increase your income and house hack ultimately here in Fort Collins. But there are a lot of restrictions. But I think in a lot of ways those barriers of entry can be more profitable for those who are willing to go learn how to do it properly.
Yeah. Yeah, just be careful. Do your work. It's not as profitable as people think at first glance. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting $200 a night. Yeah, when you really add in all your stuff, it's not quite $200 a night, guys. Let's see here. Opportunities for extra income, storage, parking, Airbnb setup. We just talked about that. Be careful of illegal duplexes, unpermitted stoves, and basements. So there's a lot of units that are being sold as duplexes, but they are not true duplexes. So make sure you do some research before you buy something. If it doesn't look and feel like a real duplex, it may not be. Just be aware. Any questions? How's that for timing, though, huh? Any questions before we wrap up for tonight? Did I go slow enough? That's it? Oh, wait question.
It wasn't really related to the class
Oh,
necessarily, but do you guys think that you would ever do a class on short-term rentals?
Would I ever do a class on short-term rentals?
Royce will teach that one.
I guess it's never getting taught, sorry.
Yeah. I don't think I'm qualified. It's a challenge.
I was unsure about the qualification there.
Yeah, I don't do it.
That's your deal.
Has a lot of information on their website.
Okay.
Yeah.
About how to do it and what you need. And there are certain areas that you're allowed to do it. There's a map for more occupant short-term rental allowed and then non-owner occupant. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go to the City of Fort Collins website, like Google short-term rentals Fort Collins. They have a ton of information, and you'd want to check that out. And then also register, get licensed, all that stuff, collect your taxes, pay them.
Okay, cool.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, questions?
So for the Fort Collins occupancy limits, it said, obviously the 30 days in the 12-month, blah, blah, blah. So what happens if you have a tenant, up through June, and then that tenant's lease ends, you have another tenant start in July, and that would have been, your final slot, right? So there's two people, and then you have your room.
I think it's the spirit of the arrangement, right? You had a lease ended.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hire an attorney all day long to argue that in court, right? I mean, I had two different tenants.
You should sign a new occupancy form with every tenant, but I will say, I don't know why I'm on mic, off the record, I have spoken to somebody, it was more of a technicality where a builder wouldn't sign the occupancy limits disclosure in Fort Collins because some builders are weird and don't sign forms that don't belong to them. At any rate, though, I talked to one of the guys at the city, and I got the impression that they're not out to catch you on a technicality. They're out to catch people who are disregarding the rule. That said, I mean, you never know who's in charge, so it may not be that guy down, 5 years in the future. It could be somebody really just trying to be gotcha. But my impression was they're not trying to do a gotcha. They're really just looking for people who are, violating the rule, and they're willing to educate if it's an honest mistake. Was my impression. But again, don't take my word for it. Be cautious.
I don't know. They caught Al Capone on taxes.
I got the same comment from them in that. So if you get caught once, they'll help you. Don't get caught a second time.
Just don't get caught, Munir.
Basically, they're not looking to catch people. If something happened and you get thing and you can plead some level of ignorance or whatever and all of that stuff, and they'll be very helpful. But if you ever do it again, now they know you're cheating.
Because they know you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parents, it was college kids having noise violations.
That's in that study. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to do the study class.
The original reason they enacted this whole occupancy limit thing was because of the college.
I'm going to knock again just so Royce has to come over.
All right. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Stick around for class after class.